My name is Sarah, I'm 42 years old, and my boss denied my request for time off for my 5-year-old daughter's life-or-death heart surgery. He looked me dead in the eye and told me her problems weren't his concern. Before I tell you how that single, cruel decision ended up costing him his entire company and ultimately, his freedom, do me a favor and let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. It's always amazing to see how far these stories can reach. It all started on a Tuesday morning. The kind of gray, unremarkable Tuesday that you forget as soon as it's over. Except I'll never forget this one. I was on a mind-numbing conference call, taking notes on autopilot about Q3 logistics, when my personal cell buzzed on the desk. A private number. My stomach clenched. I excused myself from the call, my voice a tight whisper, and stepped into the hallway. "This is Sarah." The voice on the other end was calm, clinical, belonging to a nurse from Dr. Albright's office. But the words she used were pure terror. "Sarah, we've been reviewing Lily's latest echocardiogram results." She paused, and in that silence, I felt the floor drop out from under me. The ventricular septal defect is showing signs of stress. The pressure is increasing. I didn't understand all the medical jargon, but I understood the urgency in her tone. The hole in my daughter's heart, the one we'd been monitoring with bated breath since she was an infant, was no longer stable. "What does that mean?" I asked, my voice barely audible. "It means we need to operate," she said, her professional tone softening with a hint of pity that made it all so much worse. "Not in a few months. Not in a few weeks. We need to schedule her for next week. It's critical, Sarah. Dr. Albright wants to avoid any risk of heart failure." Heart failure. The two words echoed in the empty hallway, sucking all the air from my lungs. Lily. My sweet, vibrant, 5-year-old girl who loved dinosaur chicken nuggets and drawing purple rainbows. Her laughter was the soundtrack to my entire life. The thought of her, so small and impossibly fragile, being wheeled into an operating room, it was a physical pain, sharp and breathtaking. I leaned against the wall for support, my knuckles white as I clutched the phone. "I understand," I mumbled. "Schedule it. Whatever she needs." We confirmed the details in a haze, and I hung up. My hand was trembling so hard I almost dropped the phone. The world was tilting, the distant buzz of my office fading into nothing. At that exact moment, my work phone, which I'd left on my desk, began to buzz incessantly. An email notification. Then another. Then a direct message on the company chat. I walked back to my desk like a zombie and saw the sender's name on the screen, Victor Langford, my boss. The subject line, in his trademark aggressive all caps, urgent, Q3 projections. I clicked it open. The email was short and devoid of any pleasantries. "Sarah, I need the revised quarterly projections on my desk by end of day. The numbers from yesterday were sloppy. Fix them. No excuses. End of day." My world had just been shattered into a million pieces, my daughter was facing emergency heart surgery, and my boss was calling my work sloppy and demanding a spreadsheet. I stared at the screen, at his callous, demanding words, and something inside me, something that had been worn down and compressed under the weight of 8 years of thankless loyalty, just broke. For 8 years, I had been his rock. I had swallowed his arrogance, I had tolerated him stealing my ideas and presenting them as his own in board meetings. I had sacrificed my own time, my own peace of mind, for his company, for his success, more times than I could ever count. I remembered the searing guilt of missing Lily's first preschool play because Victor had messed up a client proposal and I had to stay up all night rewriting it from scratch. I remembered canceling my own birthday dinner with my parents because he demanded a last-minute report. My own divorce had been made 10 times more stressful because of the work he piled on, leaving me no emotional energy to deal with my own life, let alone the custody arrangements. I had put this job, this man's ambition, ahead of my own life. But I would not, could not, put it ahead of my daughter's. Not now. Not ever. I had suffered enough. 8 years of loyalty was about to burn to the ground. Today. I stood up, my chair scraping harshly against the floor. The sound made a few heads pop up over the cubicle walls. I didn't grab my purse. I didn't log out of my computer. I just walked. I walked past the sea of gray cubicles, my colleague's face as a blur of curiosity and concern. I walked toward the corner office, the one with the big oak doors and the private view of the city. As I approached the reception desk just outside it, Megan, the sweet, perpetually stressed-out receptionist, gave me a look of wide-eyed alarm. "Sarah? Are you okay?" she whispered, her eyes darting toward his closed door. "He's in a terrible mood today. He just got off a call with corporate." I managed a small, sad smile for her. "It doesn't matter anymore, Megan." Her brow furrowed in confusion, but I kept walking. I knocked once on Victor's heavy door, a firm, solid rap that surprised even me, and I entered without waiting for an invitation. He was on the phone, of course, pacing in front of his floor-to-ceiling window, barking orders at some unfortunate soul on the other end. "I don't pay you to think. I pay you to do what I tell you," he yelled, before slamming the phone down. He turned to me, his face a mask of irritation. "What is it, Sarah? Can't you see I'm busy?" "This will only take a minute," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. I held out the official hospital letter I had printed with shaking hands just moments before. He didn't take it. "Victor, I need to take some time off. My daughter, Lily, she needs emergency heart surgery next week." He didn't even glance at the letter in my hand. He actually scoffed, a dry, dismissive sound that scraped against my raw nerves. He walked around his massive desk and sank into his throne-like leather chair. "Time off? Now? Sarah, did you not just read my email? We're in the middle of closing the quarter. We have a board meeting in 2 weeks. It's a critical time for the company." The casual way he dismissed my personal crisis felt like a slap in the face. "It's critical for my daughter's life," I repeated, my words catching in my throat. I could feel the heat rising in my cheeks. "This isn't a vacation, Victor. This is a life-or-death situation." "That sounds a bit dramatic, don't you think?" he said, steepling his fingers. "It's critical for you, maybe. I run a business. Your personal problems are not my concern." His words hung in the air, cold and sharp. And in that moment, a flashback hit me with the force of a physical blow. I wasn't in his office anymore. I was seeing the video my mom sent me of Lily's preschool play. She was dressed as a little sunflower, looking out at the audience, her face falling slightly when she couldn't find me in the crowd. I had been stuck in the office until 10 p.m. that night, salvaging a multi-million-dollar account after Victor had insulted a client's wife at a dinner. I had saved his career that night, and I had missed seeing my daughter shine. He never even said thank you. He just took the credit, and the bonus that came with it. That bonus could have fully funded Lily's college fund. My own salary had barely budged in 3 years. I was pulled back to the present by the smug look on his face. The fury that had been simmering inside me for years finally boiled over. "Victor, I have worked for you for 8 years, I said, my voice low and shaking with a controlled rage. "I have never taken a sick day I didn't earn. I have worked weekends, holidays. I have built the relationships with our biggest clients. I have covered your mistakes. I have never asked for anything. I am asking you now. Please." For a flicker of a second, I thought I saw a glimmer of humanity in his eyes. I was wrong. It was just the reflection of his expensive watch. A smirk curled his lips. "You think you're irreplaceable, Sarah? Is that it?" he sneered. "Let me be clear. You want the time off, you can have it. But don't expect your job, or your desk, to be here when you get back." It wasn't a choice. It was an execution. My daughter's life, or the job I needed to support her. The sheer, brutal absurdity of it was staggering. And in that moment, all my fear, all my desperation, vanished. It was replaced by a cold, hard clarity I hadn't felt in years. "I see," I said softly. I reached into my wallet, pulled out my company ID, and placed it gently on the polished surface of his desk. I added my office key next to it. The metallic clink was the only sound in the room. He stared at the items, then back at my face, his arrogant smirk finally faltering. "What is this?" "I resign," I said, my voice clear and strong. Effective immediately. I turned my back on him without waiting for a response. I walked out of his office, head held high. As I passed Chloe, his young assistant who was often the target of his foul moods, I saw her staring at me, her mouth slightly agape, a file clutched to her chest. I met her gaze and gave her a tiny, almost imperceptible nod. It was a silent acknowledgement, a passing of a baton I didn't even know I was carrying. Then I walked through the office, past the stunned faces of my colleagues, and out the main glass doors of Langford Enterprises for the last time. I didn't look back. The next few days were a living nightmare, a blur of antiseptic smells, hushed conversations, and the constant, rhythmic beeping of machines that I prayed would never stop. I lived in the pediatric cardiac ICU waiting room, a sterile, beige box that felt like a prison. I tried to read, but the words swam on the page. I tried to eat, but the food tasted like cardboard. I was fueled by lukewarm coffee from a vending machine and a terror so profound it felt like a constant, low-level hum beneath my skin. My best friend, Jessica, was my anchor in the storm. She was a lawyer, a shark in the courtroom but a total softie with me. She showed up with clean clothes, blankets, and a thermos of real, hot coffee. She sat with me for hours, holding my hand, letting me cry, and filling the silence when I couldn't speak. "When this is over, we're suing him for wrongful termination," she seethed one afternoon, her eyes flashing with righteous anger. "What he did is beyond unethical. It's monstrous." But I couldn't even process that. My entire world had shrunk to the size of that one operating room door. My past life, my career, my anger at Victor, it all felt like it had happened to someone else. My only reality was the slow, agonizing tick of the clock on the wall. Then, after 6 hours that felt like 6 lifetimes, the door opened. The surgeon, Dr. Evans, came out, his blue scrubs looking worn, his face tired but etched with a gentle smile. "She was a champion," he said, his voice soft. "The surgery was a complete success. She's in recovery now." The relief was so immense, so total, that my knees buckled. Jessica caught me before I hit the floor. I sobbed, right there in the middle of the hallway, ugly, gasping, grateful sobs that tore through my chest. Lily was going to be okay. That's all that mattered. The following week, as Lily recovered at home, propped up on the couch with pillows and her favorite stuffed sloth, a new, colder reality began to set in. I was unemployed. A single mom, still paying off the debts from my divorce, with a mountain of medical bills about to crash down on me. The panic I had successfully kept at bay during the crisis began to creep in, cold and insidious. I started updating my resume at the kitchen table while Lily napped, scrolling through job sites, my stomach twisting into tighter and tighter knots. Then, the first bill arrived. Not from the hospital itself, but from the anesthesiologist. I opened it, and the number printed at the bottom made me feel dizzy. It was more than I had in my savings account. This was just one bill, from one doctor. The surgeon's bill was coming. The hospital stay bill was coming. The follow-up care. It was a financial avalanche, and I had just walked away from my only shovel. That night, after I'd checked on Lily for the 10th time, I sat in the dark living room, the bill clutched in my hand, and for the first time since I'd walked out of Victor's office, a wave of crippling doubt washed over me. I buried my face in my hands. What have I done? I had no plan. No safety net. How am I going to provide for her now? I called Jessica, my voice cracking. "Jess, I think I made a huge mistake." No, she said instantly, her voice firm and clear over the phone. You made the only choice a mother could make. You stood up for your daughter. Now, you need to stand up for yourself. Listen to me, Sarah. Forget about Victor for a second. Think about your work. For 8 years, who handled the big accounts? Who did the clients call when there was a problem? Who did they trust to fix things? Me, I whispered, the answer automatic. Exactly, she said, her voice filled with energy. Victor didn't have those relationships. You did. He was just the guy who signed the contracts you negotiated. Your knowledge, your reputation, your client relationships, that's not just loyalty, Sarah. That's an asset. That's your leverage. Her words were like a splash of cold water. She was right. The next day, Jessica came over. She brought a box of donuts and a stack of legal pads. While Lily watched cartoons, we sat at my kitchen table and we strategized. We brainstormed business names. She walked me through the basics of setting up an LLC. It felt overwhelming, but for the first time, a tiny flicker of hope ignited in the darkness. I started going through my old contacts, not to poach, but to build a plan. I knew these clients. I knew their businesses, their families, their frustrations with Victor's arrogance. I had been their problem solver. The idea was terrifying, but it was also empowering. For the first time, I wasn't thinking like a helpless, unemployed single mom. I was thinking like a CEO. The turning point came 2 weeks after I quit. I had sent out a few resumes with little response, and the familiar tendrils of despair were starting to creep back in. Then, an email popped into my inbox from a man named Mr. Henderson, the CEO of what had been my biggest account. The one whose account I had saved from the brink years ago. The subject line was simple, question. He wrote that things at Langford Enterprises had been, in his words, an unmitigated disaster since I left. Deadlines were being missed, calls weren't being returned, and the new account manager Victor had assigned was clueless. He ended the email with a simple, powerful question. I know it's a long shot, but are you working elsewhere? We have a new project launching, and frankly, Sarah, you're the only person I trust to handle it. My heart leaped into my throat. I read the email 3 times to make sure it was real. I remembered Jessica's words. After taking a deep breath, I wrote back, explaining that I had just started my own independent consulting firm. 20 minutes later, my phone rang. It was him. Sarah, that's the best news I've heard all week, he said, his voice booming with relief. Consider yourself hired. Send me a proposal and a contract. As far as I'm concerned, you've got the job. We hung up, and I just stared at my phone, stunned. A single tear rolled down my cheek, but this time, it wasn't from fear or sadness. It was from pure, unadulterated relief. It was happening. It was real. That small taste of victory was sweeter than any fake praise or hollow promotion I had ever received from Victor. Apparently, Victor heard about it too. The very next day, my phone rang with a number I knew all too well. It was him. His tone wasn't angry, not yet. It was slick, oily, and dripping with false sincerity. Sarah, he cooed, as if we were old friends catching up. I heard the good news about the Henderson account. See? I always knew you were a star. You just needed a little push. I stayed silent, letting him talk. Listen, he continued, I think I was under a lot of pressure when we last spoke. I was out of line. The company needs you. I need you. Come back. I'll double your previous salary. We can forget this whole thing ever happened. Double my salary. 6 months ago, that offer would have been a dream come true. I would have felt validated, seen, appreciated. But now? It felt like a cheap bribe. An insult. He wasn't offering me a promotion because he valued me, he was trying to buy back the key to his kingdom because he had locked himself out. He didn't value my talent, only what my talent could do for him. The power had irrevocably shifted. No, thank you, Victor, I said, my voice as calm and cool as a frozen lake. I'm not interested. And for the second time, I hung up on him. The silence that followed was the most satisfying sound I had ever heard. That rejection was the flick of a switch. Victor's manipulative charm vanished, replaced by pure, unfiltered rage. His desperation started to show, and it wasn't pretty. He began making frantic calls to my other former clients, bad-mouthing me, making up lies about my performance, trying to salvage the relationships that I had spent years building. But it was too late. His incompetence, now fully exposed without me there to cover for it, was more damaging than any lie he could spin. My business, on the other hand, was starting to bloom. After I officially signed Henderson Consulting, the word got around our industry. 2 other major clients from my past life reached out within a week. They both told me similar stories of chaos, neglect, and Victor's increasing arrogance. I drafted proposals, held meetings in coffee shops, and slowly, carefully, began building my own roster of clients. These were people who respected my work, valued my input, and paid my invoices on time. It was a whole new world. I officially filed the paperwork for Thompson Consulting, LLC. Seeing my own name on a legal business document was a quiet, deeply personal moment of triumph. The real climax, the moment I knew I had truly won, didn't happen over the phone or through a scathing email. It happened in person, in the most public way imaginable. I was at the Oak Room, a nice steakhouse downtown, having a celebratory lunch with Mr. Henderson to officially kick off our multi-year project. I was wearing a new blazer I'd bought with my first advance payment. I felt confident, professional, and for the first time in a long, long time, genuinely happy and secure. And that's when Victor stormed in. He didn't walk in, he burst through the heavy glass doors like a man possessed. His face was a blotchy red, his expensive suit was rumpled, and his eyes were wild with fury. He scanned the crowded room, and when he saw me, he locked on like a heat-seeking missile and marched straight toward our table. There you are, he boomed, his voice echoing through the quiet, elegant restaurant. Conversations stopped. Forks paused midway to mouths. Everyone turned to stare. I knew it. You're a thief. A backstabbing traitor. He slammed his hands on our table, making the water glasses jump and slosh. You're stealing my clients. My business. After everything I did for you. I gave you a career, he spat, flecks of spittle flying from his mouth. I will sue you for everything you have. You'll be ruined. You and your little girl. You'll never work in this town again. I was frozen, completely mortified, my face burning with humiliation. All the old fear, the feeling of being small and powerless in his suffocating presence, came rushing back with a vengeance. I felt like the same scared employee, trapped in his office. I opened my mouth to say something, anything, but no words came out. But then I looked at Mr. Henderson. He hadn't flinched. He was calmly, deliberately folding his cloth napkin and placing it on the table. His expression was one of utter disdain. He looked up at Victor, his voice low but carrying an authority that sliced through Victor's hysterical rant like a surgeon's scalpel. Mr. Langford, he said clearly, his gaze like ice. Let me be perfectly clear. I am no longer your client because your company has become a model of incompetence and mismanagement. I chose to work with Ms. Thompson because she is the most competent, reliable, and professional person I have had the pleasure of doing business with in the last decade. He then reached into the inner pocket of his suit jacket and pulled out a crisp business card, sliding it across the white tablecloth toward Victor. This is the card of my personal lawyer. His firm is on retainer. If you continue to harass, slander, or in any way bother my new business partner, he said, emphasizing the last 2 words, your next conversation will be with him. Now, I suggest you leave before I have the manager remove you for trespassing. The color drained from Victor's face. He looked from Mr. Henderson's stony expression, to my shocked one, to the lawyer's card sitting on the table like a death sentence. He opened his mouth, a pathetic gurgling sound coming out, then closed it. The bully, stripped of his power and his audience, was just a pathetic, blustering man in a wrinkled suit. Without another word, he turned and practically fled from the restaurant, leaving a wake of stunned silence and whispers behind him. I looked at Mr. Henderson, my eyes welling up with tears of gratitude. "Thank you," I whispered, my voice thick with emotion. He just smiled, a warm, genuine smile. "Good people need to stick together, Sarah." Now, I believe we were discussing Q1 deliverables? In that moment, sitting in that restaurant, I didn't feel triumphant or vengeful. I just felt free. Utterly and completely free. A month after the restaurant incident, the last of my major former clients officially left Victor to sign with me. His company, once a major player in the city, was now a sinking ship, hemorrhaging money and talent. He sent one last, bitter email filled with childish insults and empty threats. I didn't even read the whole thing. I just created a new rule in my inbox to send any email from his address directly and permanently to the trash. It was a small, digital act, but it felt like bolting a door I had finally closed for good. A few days later, I got a text from an old colleague. "Heard you're killing it," she wrote. "Best decision you ever made. How did you do it? I want out too." I had become an inspiration, a blueprint for escape. It was a strange and wonderful feeling. 6 months passed. My life transformed in ways I could never have imagined. My consulting business was not just surviving, it was thriving. I worked from a bright, sunny office I set up in a spare bedroom, the walls covered in Lily's purple rainbow drawings. I set my own hours. I never missed a school event or a doctor's appointment. I was there to make Lily breakfast every morning and tuck her into her bed every night. The crushing fear of the medical bills was gone, replaced by the quiet confidence of a steadily growing business bank account. One day, after landing a huge, year-long contract, I did something I'd only dreamed of. I ordered a custom-built playground set for our backyard. Not just any set, but a beautiful cedar one with a wavy slide, 2 swings, and a special climbing wall with low-incline, easy-grip holds to help with Lily's continued physical therapy and recovery. The day it was installed, I watched Lily from the kitchen window, her joyous laughter echoing through the yard as she climbed the small slide for the first time. It wasn't just a playground set. It was a tangible symbol of my success. A victory I could see and touch, built not on revenge, but on love and the fierce, primal determination to provide a better, safer world for my daughter. That evening, as I was closing my laptop, an email arrived from an unfamiliar address. It was from Chloe, Victor's former assistant. The subject line was simple, "Something you need to see." In the email, she told me she'd finally quit a month ago. She said she couldn't stand watching Victor, in his final, desperate days, start to cook the books. He was falsifying invoices and creating ghost clients to inflate his revenue numbers, trying to secure an emergency business loan to keep his failing company afloat. He was becoming a real criminal, she wrote. And seeing you stand up to him that day in the office, it made me realize I couldn't be a part of it. I couldn't be silent. Attached to the email were scanned documents. Dozens of them. Invoices, bank statements, and copies of emails between Victor and his accountant. It was irrefutable, undeniable proof of corporate fraud. My hands trembled as I opened the files. It was all there. A clear, deliberate pattern of deception and theft. After a long, late-night call with Jessica, I knew what I had to do. This was bigger than just bad business. It was illegal. The next morning, Jessica and I walked into the district attorney's office and handed everything over. The final chapter of Victor Langford's story didn't play out in a boardroom, but in a courtroom. He was arrested 2 weeks later. His mugshot was on the local news, his face no longer arrogant and smug, but ashen and defeated. His company collapsed into bankruptcy. His legacy was not one of success, but of disgrace and a prison sentence. Today, as I push Lily on her swing in our sunny backyard, I sometimes think about what Victor said to me in that cold, sterile office. That my personal problems weren't his concern. In a way, he was right. They weren't his concern. They were mine. My responsibility. My fight. And by taking ownership of them, by facing them head-on with everything I had, I took ownership of my life, my career, and my own power. I became the CEO of my own life. It was a promotion I had to fight for, one I had to give myself. Lily laughs, a pure, happy sound, as her feet kick toward the sky. Higher, Mommy, higher. I smile and push her swing, sending her soaring into the bright, blue sky. We are free. We are safe. We are home. Thank you all so much for listening to my story. It's been a crazy, difficult, but ultimately rewarding journey, and I'm so grateful for where I am today. I have a question for you all. Have you ever had to make a really difficult choice between your job and your family? I'd love to hear about your experiences in the comments below. It helps all of us to know we're not alone in these struggles. And of course, if my story resonated with you, please give this video a like and subscribe for more. It really helps the channel out. Thanks again for watching.